Hello, thank you for joining. We are just going to wait a couple of minutes here for everyone to get logged on. Hello, thank you for joining. We are just going to wait a couple of minutes here for everyone to get logged on. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Hyperledger In-depth webinar. We'll just get started in about a minute or two. Hi, everyone. I'll just give people another minute to join and we'll get started. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are. I'd love to get started here today with our next Hyperledger Foundation in-depth webinar with CasperLabs. We have Medha Parlikar here, CTO and co-founder of CasperLabs, who's going to share with you about how they are unlocking a $3 trillion market for businesses. I'm Karen O'Toney. I'm the Senior Director of Ecosystem and Strategic Initiatives at Hyperledger Foundation, and I'll be hosting the webinar today. I have a couple of housekeeping things to go through before we dive in. One is Hyperledger is committed to promoting diversity and inclusion and making sure that we are a welcoming community. So we emphasize creating a safe and welcoming community for all, and that includes how we manage ourselves in the chat and in any community meeting that we're having or event. We also go by the Linux Foundation antitrust policy in meetings. And so we have to conduct our activities in accordance with that. If you have any questions about the antitrust policy, you can see it on our website or on our wiki at wiki.hyperledger.org. We are currently recording this, and we are also live on YouTube. The recording will be available on the webinar page of our website after this session, as well in our YouTube library of webinars. And the slides will be available on the webinar page on our website as well. So don't worry, you will get them. We really encourage these sessions to be interactive. This is an opportunity for you to get a chance to speak with someone who's working on something that's of interest to you, solving a problem or challenge that you might be having as well. So please feel free to raise your hand, post questions in the Q&A box, and I will be monitoring them throughout the session, both in the webinar and on the YouTube Live as well. So without further ado, let me welcome Medha. Please, thank you for joining us, and I will unshare my screen so you can get started.
Terrific, Karen. Thank you so much. And thanks for welcoming me here today. We're so excited to be part of the Hyperledger community and really excited to share some knowledge and hear feedback from members of the Hyperledger community about CasperLabs and the content that we're sharing here today. So I'll just dig in. About me, I'm Medha Parlikar. I'm the Chief Technology Officer and one of the co-founders of CasperLabs. I hail from the Web 2, cloud, SaaS, whatever you want to call it, space. I worked there for about 25 years as a technical leader in large organizations like Adobe, Avalara, and mp3.com. I've worked in content delivery, web analytics, fintech, and compliance, where I was responsible for product and program management and quality control. So let's dig in. So, when I met Renal, we really had a meeting of the minds. Renal is one of my co-founders, and we discovered that enterprise needed a few things. They needed a public protocol that really solved the adoption issues that we were seeing around public blockchain infrastructure. And we had to do this without sacrificing security. And they also needed a professional services company to help enterprises adopt the technology. And so from there, we founded CasperLabs in 2018. And we founded the company during a crypto winter, and we built the technology during a pandemic. And so we have been very steadfast in our belief that enterprises are central to scaling the adoption of blockchain technology. And in order to do that, blockchain technology had to scale within the enterprise itself. And, let's start by talking about trade-offs, namely, scalability for security. And we know that blockchains, the most important property is the security of public blockchains. We also know that proof of work is very inefficient and not sustainable. And many proof of stake protocols will sacrifice security for scale, right? So they have optimistic consensus protocols, or they take shortcuts in order to make the protocol go faster. And we've observed that a lot of these protocols are either not stable, or it takes a very small number of participants to halt the protocol or bring the protocol down or compromise security. And this is one of the reasons why, Hyperledger has broad adoption in the enterprise, because it's able to scale adoption within the enterprise, right? It provides a lot of the controls that enterprises need that is not available in a public blockchain. And so what we wanted to do was kind of thread that needle and provide as much of the controls we could possibly provide to enterprise in a public manner, right? So what this means is that the blockchain itself is public versus private, but enterprises still get a lot of the control that they need in order to build a sustainable and scalable business using blockchain technology, or products using blockchain technology. And so if you think about the adoption trilemma, what would a chain that solved that really look like? And it was really clear that I needed to build a public blockchain that I would use as an enterprise technology leader. So it needed to be secure and decentralized, but it needed to interoperate with my existing IT stacks. And it needed to be scalable within my organization. It had to meet the needs of all of my stakeholders, right? I had to be able to use development operations. I had to be able to upgrade my contracts and introduce new code changes. I needed to have some guarantees around the controls and the security operations and best practices that my organization needed around governing that code, as all code is governed within an enterprise organization. And so I really see the CasperLabs and Hyperledger union as kind of a match made in heaven, right? So Hyperledger pioneered enterprise-grade private blockchain deployments, and it's emerged as a clear leader in the broader enterprise blockchain space. And like Hyperledger, we believe that enterprises will be central to scaling out the adoption of blockchain technology. But sometimes there is value in a public network, right? And Casper is built to provide many of these benefits that enterprise needs, but as a public network to bring the best of the two worlds together, right? And so last May, we demonstrated the first ever atomic swap between Hyperledger Fabric and Casper in tandem with our partners at IBM. And we're seeing a growing demand from businesses for this exact type of functionality, and Casper is really uniquely poised to deliver this. So enterprises really led the way for mass adoption of the internet, and they're going to do the exact same thing with blockchain, right? And we see ourselves positioned as Red Hat to the open source Linux, right? Us being the Red Hat, and then Linux, of course, being the blockchain technology that's Casper. And businesses are projected to create more than $3 trillion in value by 2030 from blockchain use cases alone, according to Gartner, right? And 93% of global executives believe that blockchain unlocks significant new revenue potential, according to Deloitte. And 75% of executives believe that a failure to adopt blockchain technology in a timely manner is going to result in a loss of competitive advantages, according to Deloitte. And even in an inflationary market, IT departments are continuing to invest in blockchain at higher rates year over year. And in 2021, it topped $6.5 billion alone. So there's a massive demand for a massively underserved market that we believe we're well positioned to provide support in. And we've always been focused on the enterprise market. We always will be. And public blockchains have largely ignored this key market for the past 4 years, but not us. And we're going to continue building this over the next 5 to 10 years as well. So let's talk a little bit in depth as to why Casper, right? I teased this around like upgradable smart contracts, right? And imagine somebody telling you that you can't change your code once you've installed it. And for me, that's absolutely where the story ends, right? Like I would never use a protocol platform with purely immutable code, purely immutable smart contracts. And this is where a lot of blockchains kind of end the story in the public domain. But you have to go further than just providing upgradable contracts. You need to provide strong security guarantees around the versioning of smart contracts on the blockchain. And this is something that only CasperLabs does, right? There are ways to upgrade other blockchain contracts on public networks, but you don't get any security guarantees around the semantic versioning of those contracts, which becomes massively important when you're doing any kind of transactions with value, right? You cannot afford to have any kind of security vulnerability or supply chain vulnerability within your code base. The other piece to think about is how is this blockchain going to interoperate with your enterprise infrastructure, right? And we're not talking about an integration with other blockchains. I don't really see that as a core issue. I'm talking about plugging directly into the systems that power your business, right? Like your business intelligence systems or the IDEs that your developers use, or the tools that your network operations team use to manage all of your backend servers. I'm talking about those systems, right? How does blockchain become part of this larger infrastructure that is deployed in a lot of large software as a service companies or inside the IT departments of the enterprise, right? And the Casper virtual machine is built on Web3, W3C WebAssembly. And the CasperLabs team is uniquely positioned to allow our customers, and our community is supportive of allowing enterprise customers to drive the roadmap of the VM. And this is an extremely unique value proposition that we bring, whereas if you need a feature added to the Ethereum virtual machine, you're never going to get it. You'll just have to work around with what the EVM offers. With Casper and CasperLabs, we can actually drive that roadmap. And we have multiple examples where our enterprise customers have come back to us and said, hey, we see this as a really important feature for you to add to the blockchain host itself. And we've worked with our community to get those features deployed to the mainnet. And this is a unique and also a traditional way in which great products are built is through the voice of customer feedback loop, right? And this is a fundamentally different architecture, both from our business perspective as well as our software perspective in terms of the blockchains themselves. We're also built for the other 25 million developers, right? Because you don't need to know Solidity. You don't have to have an ivory tower within your organization where you've got that 1 or 2 specialists that have this special niche capability about the public blockchain, right? The idea is you want to, if you're going to implement a technology within your infrastructure, you want to get as much value out of that technology as possible. And blockchain, the magic happens when you start using it as a proof, a centralized proof within your systems where you can trust that data. And so if you've got KYC information that's going on a blockchain, you want to be able to plug into that data with other teams. So it's important, even with public blockchain infrastructure, that you scale out that adoption internally so you can extract as much value as you can out of the technology, right? So all of this is available within the Casper ecosystem for you to use. We believe that the future is hybrid, and we're built exactly for that reality, right? So most large firms and government organizations are never going to be able to deploy in fully decentralized environments, right? They need to retain privacy and control. But blockchains still present this tremendous opportunity to save money and open new revenue streams. And so hybrid is a great way to do this, right? You can get security guarantees from the public network without having to put sensitive data or sensitive information on the public network. And you can selectively choose how you want to interface with the public network and control on Casper uniquely your interactions with that public network, because we provide upgradable smart contracts. We provide a very rich and robust mechanism for you to control accounts and what accounts can do on the Casper protocol.
Hi, Medha. So just going to jump in here. We got a question from someone on YouTube, and maybe you'll cover this later. But they're asking if you could share some examples of why we want upgradable smart contracts, as it may be a threat to security, and more centralized devs can change the code at any point of time, perhaps exploit things. So why is that beneficial, and how is it safe, I guess?
Yeah, so it's absolutely beneficial for enterprises and entities that need to maintain regulatory compliance, as a great example, right? So let's say there's a regulatory shift, right? And you need to now do something different, say with a set of NFTs, say with some fungible token standards. Maybe you need to make a change where something that wasn't transferable before is transferable now. For whatever reason, you want to take advantage of a new market opportunity, right? You have to be able to do that in a safe manner, with some guarantees. It's true that upgradable smart contracts can present a challenge where you could have a bad actor do a bad things, but the flip side is, technology doesn't solve the bad actor problem, right? You can also have a really bad vulnerability. You can have a really bad bug that you can't fix because it's immutable, right? So it cuts both ways. Right. And I actually believe that trust is going to be established off-chain. I believe that today and even in the future, individuals will interact with enterprises and interact with authorities or individuals or enterprises or entities that they trust. So trust is still going to be established outside of the smart contract. So if I believe this is a good actor, I'm going to trust them. Right. So it's possible to have immutable smart contracts on Casper. It's not that it's impossible. It's a contract that can never be upgraded, right? So, but it allows you to build your contracts incrementally. It allows you to address defects. It allows you to upgrade to maintain regulatory compliance. And if you think about it, all the software that we use today was not written in one go. Any software we've used, right? It's always been incrementally developed. And it is important to recognize that while the history of a transaction needs to be immutable, our future simply is not immutable, right? And so smart contracts need to provide that capability, where the blockchain needs to provide that capability that smart contracts can also adjust, evolve, adapt to what the needs of the enterprise and regulatory and customers are for the future, right? And we're seeing a lot that this is an extremely important requirement for a lot of enterprises in order to adopt blockchain technology. So in wrapping, what's our ambition is we want to onboard the next 100 million users onto blockchain technology. And they increasingly look like cloud users today, right? AKA everyday consumers who are customers of major companies. And we believe that through enterprise adoption is how those 100 million users are going to use blockchain technology. And they're not even going to know that they're necessarily using blockchain technology, right? The blockchain is going to be a very small piece of a larger application architecture. It's going to fade to the background, and users will get the benefits of the blockchain technology, be it in, more guarantees, new features, and better usability for the products and services that they're used to using today. And so our mission is to handle the back end of this blockchain technology so businesses can focus on solving their core problems and delivering an exceptional customer experience. So the time is now for businesses to harness the power of blockchain and come build with us. And I'm open to hearing questions from folks that are attending the webinar. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thanks, Meta. If anyone wants to come off mute, you can just raise your hand, and I'm happy to give you the floor. I also just see someone is just saying thanks for the information, and they're a big fan of your work on YouTube. Meta, I was wondering if maybe you could talk through a little bit more in detail about the example that you did on the hybrid transaction with IBM. If you could share any more details on how that worked, and maybe were there any challenges that happened in that example that you really had to kind of work through that others might encounter when they're doing the same?
Oh, yeah. So we have built a bridge. We've built a Hyperledger to a token bridge between Hyperledger and Casper. It's available in the Hyperledger repository in GitHub. And what this bridge allows folks to do is, if you have tokenized assets on Hyperledger, you can bridge those assets over to Casper to gain liquidity. And this is an extremely interesting use case for particularly, financial institutions that are looking to offer, for example, tokenized assets on a public network and get access to liquidity on those networks. And the way it is, it's a time-locked transaction, right? So there would be it's like a bid and ask, if you think about it. So somebody puts up a tokenized asset on the Hyperledger side into the bridge. And somebody is willing to buy that. They exchange a shared secret. So there's a shared secret that they exchange. And when both confirm the shared secret, then the transaction takes place and the assets are basically bridged from Alice to Bob, right? And this is, I'm kind of, glossing over some of the technical details, but in essence, both parties have to acknowledge that, yes, I have, exchanged the shared secret. The monies have been exchanged, and I have actually purchased this asset and now bridge it over to me on the public protocol, right? And so this is an extremely interesting way in which you can gain access to a larger liquidity pool using a public blockchain protocol, right? You can also do other interesting things. You can bridge NFT assets over, right? And if you want to bridge other tokenized kinds of assets over, it's a great use case for that. It's also a great use case for you to get provability that your Hyperledger instance has full immutability, right? Because if there isn't any decentralization, we know that security guarantees do go down, right? And so there may be compliance use cases and other use cases where you want to prove that, yes, the Hyperledger instance we have, everything is fully immutable. We haven't gone back and rewritten history. We haven't gone back and tampered with the global state. And increasingly, those kinds of, that provability of immutability is eventually going to become more and more important as consumers and others become more aware of the capabilities of blockchain, right? And so, tapping into a public protocol gives you great guarantees around that, because the public protocol, there is no way to change anything on the Casper protocol unless the 2/3 of the community agree to do so, right? And that's like more of like, I want to say like an existential event, right? If that would ever happen. It's only happened once in Ethereum's entire history. It's never happened in Bitcoin, as far as I know. And it's never happened in Casper. So I think there's a lot of value in that. And it's very nominal, right, for private blockchains to take advantage of public infrastructure this way. It's very low risk and a lot of benefit.
All right, thank you. So we have a couple of questions coming in. So can you give an example of an asset that is a good use case for a public-private hybrid chain?
Yeah, so an example would be like, so we have a joint venture we call Nucleus, that's Nucleus Finance, right? And they are working with Nucleus Finance is a collaboration between CasperLabs and the researchers of Octus. And the Octus standard is well established in a lot of financial institutions, a lot of banking institutions. And here an example is we are creating tokenized assets on private blockchains. So as an example, think of leases, right? Automobile leases. So you want to tokenize automobile leases, but perhaps you want to securitize some of those automobile leases by offering some kind of a security offering. So you can actually get transparency around. So you can give some guarantees that we have these tokenized assets, and you can provide guarantees to whoever's participating in the securitization of those assets that we're tracking these on a private chain, and that they are then bridged over to a public chain in the form of a security offering, where now you want to get liquidity off of it, right? So a lot of the use cases you're going to find of a tokenized asset is really going to be a case where you want to get liquidity off of the public chain and really be able to transact those securitized offerings on the public blockchain.
Okay. Let me see. Juan, and I'm sorry I didn't offer this to you, John. I forgot. Juan, do you want to come off of mute and ask your question to Medha? If not, I'm happy to ask for you. But just want to give you the opportunity to jump in here if you like. Hi, Juan. Can you hear me?
Hi, yeah, so my question is, I know that the Audra release was announced today. How does that relate to previous smart contract framework, and how would that change moving forward?
Yeah, so
in other words,
yeah, absolutely. So the Audra release is actually a layer on top of the Casper-based smart contracting framework. It streamlines and simplifies some of the, think of it like a set of macros, right? It's like a set of macros and a framework that makes smart contract development on Casper a little easier for developers to get started with. So I don't feel like, you can still write smart contracts natively in Rust if you wish to, or you can use the Audra framework to help speed up the development of smart contracts on Casper vis-a-vis writing them from scratch using Rust. So Audra was actually developed by one of the former core developers on Casper, and it's a community-driven initiative. So we're really excited about the release, and we hope that it'll make things a lot easier for Solidity developers to get started on Casper without having the big lift of Rust. I hope that answered your question.
That won't change the WebAssembly architecture, right? It's
Not at all.
Be using WebAssembly.
Correct. 100%. Yes. 100%. And what's interesting about the Casper virtual machine, I didn't really dig into this that much, is the way the Casper architecture works is transactions are executed after consensus. And so, this is actually very different than anywhere else in the space. And what makes it really unique is that you don't need to know anything about consensus or the underlying node semantics to build and run a smart contract. And this enables Casper contracts to actually be built and run in an IDE. The Casper virtual machine can be run on a build server, and Casper contracts can be built natively using continuous integration and continuous deployment. And the reason for this is we keep WebAssembly very, very pure. If you work on some of the other public blockchains, their implementations of WebAssembly basically yank a lot of, they add a lot of, complication to the WebAssembly layer. So now you need to understand how Solana works. You need to understand how Near works. You have to understand how Polkadot works in order to actually write the smart contracts effectively. And now you can no longer run them using CI/CD because you need those full nodes. You need the full semantic of the blockchain in order to run the smart contracts, right? So with Casper, you don't need that. We kept the WebAssembly piece very, very, very pure. There's additional capability within Rust on the host that the host enforces, but WASM is very, very pure. So you can actually send any kind of WASM in any language that compiles to WASM, and it will run on Casper.
That's super exciting. Thank you for that update, Medha. Great work. Keep it up.
Thanks.
Thank you, Juan, for the question. And John, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to jump in as well. There was a couple questions here on our YouTube attendees from Agata. What is CasperLabs' take on consolidation versus decentralization?
I believe that the underlying blockchain infrastructure absolutely has to remain decentralized as possible. The Casper Association and the validator set work really, really hard to make sure that our Nakamoto coefficient is always on the rise, right? So we are looking to drive decentralization. So there's more and more participants in the network, more and more spread in terms of, you know, how the stake is distributed in the network. So it's more and more decentralized. Now, with respects to what's built on chain, right? Like, we believe that enterprises need to be responsible and accountable to regulatory bodies. They're responsible and accountable to boards of directors, to customers. And so whatever's built on chain is going to be governed. It'll need to be governed by those enterprises. And so they need to control what's built on chain. So I believe that the underlying blockchain has to provide tremendous security. And in order to do that, it has to be very, very decentralized. But I also believe that anything built on top of the blockchain, like all software, is going to be governed, right? And the protocol should provide the necessary tools and capabilities for participants to govern their on-chain contracts in the manner that they see fit. So what does that mean? Well, it means, like, if an account controls a contract, I should be able to set up multi-signature for upgrades and deployments of that contract. Well, the host provides that capability, right? So if I want to build a decentralized autonomous organization, and I deem that there's 50 participants that decide whether there's a change made to how the DAO contracts function, the Casper protocol will support that on the host, right? And we do that through our very rich account model. We provide capability to do smart contract upgrades. Then we leave it up to those participants on how they want to govern their contracts, right? Rather than me dictating that or us dictating that. And so it's all about providing those capabilities within the host so that people that want to use the infrastructure, whomever they may be, can decide how they want to use it and how they want to govern it.
That's awesome. Another question here is, how does CasperLabs ensure that node power will not be consolidated?
So with our Casper 2.0 release that's planned next year, we're going to be opening it up, the validator set, even more. Right now, we're limited to 100 validators or 100 nodes that can participate in the network. With the Zug consensus protocol release, which is slated for 2023, we should be able to open that up well over 250. And based on our research, you know, there's no network that really has more than 250 validators in the system. And we feel that this will actually help the network decentralize even more. So we are well aware of this risk of node consolidation, and our goal is to make it more robust over time. And we work, you know, the community and the validator set and the association works to ensure that there is not node consolidation. We work with even the staking providers. Some of the larger staking providers have been pushing forward to actually provision more node infrastructure and select more staking providers to help the network remain decentralized. So it's definitely a focus for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And will there be any utility of the Casper token for private companies using the blockchain Casper?
Will there be utility for private companies of the CSPR token using? So if companies choose to use a hybrid model, right, if they're going to use the hybrid blockchain, they're going to be using the Casper public network to get those security guarantees on those private chains. So that will be the way enterprises will use the public protocol, is really to secure those private chains, right? So then they can prove to auditors or customers or whomever they need to prove to that our blockchain is in fact immutable, right? And we think that's an extremely important value proposition that the public network brings.
Great. And let me know if you have any other questions. Please feel free to post in the Q&A or in the chat. You know, we had our Hyperledger Member Summit in Dublin, Ireland. Medha, you were there with us. It was our first time back in person, which was really exciting. And, you know, one of the sessions we had was on hybrid blockchains. And it's something that I think our community is going to be more and more engaged in, especially with what you're all doing and offering. And so I kind of just wanted to zoom out a little bit and get your perspective on what you think is going to be, what you think 2023 is really going to be about in terms of how much we're going to see exploration, maybe even production examples of hybrid blockchain networks, and how the people in the audience can get involved in exploring that with us.
Yeah, so it was really terrific to be there in Dublin with everybody. It was such a wonderful conference, and I learned a ton. Firstly, I thought it was one of the few conferences where I went to actually attended all these sessions, and each one of them was super informative. So usually when I go to a conference, I'm not as drawn to the sessions as I was the Hyperledger conference. So it was just really, really tremendous. I'm super excited. So in January, IPWE, who happens to be a Hyperledger customer, is actually going live with their hybrid blockchain implementation on Casper. They've already started minting tokens on the Casper mainnet, and our goal is to mint 1 million tokens on Casper by January. And we're really, really excited about this. I think it's going to be a fantastic demonstration of the way hybrid blockchains can work, right? So the patents are secured with the infrastructure of a public network. It's public data that is publicly available, and the provenance and the ownership of that patent is public information. But the terms of sale and the negotiation and how the buy and sell and the leasing of those patents is done on the private blockchain, right? So this is an excellent example of where the terms are negotiated using a private Hyperledger instance. And then once the sale is complete, the patent is transferred or minted on Casper on the public network. And it provides really best of both worlds because it's very clear in terms of who owns the patent, and you can observe the patent as well publicly, because that provenance previously was not known, right? It was not known who owned a patent. It was only known that once the USPTO issued the patent, that was the initial owner. But then after that, if the patent was sold, transferred, leased, there was no information around what the current state of the ownership of that patent was. So this is happening in 2023. I'm really excited about that. And we have some other initiatives, which I can't go into a lot of detail with, unfortunately, due to NDAs, but there's multiple hybrid blockchain implementations we are looking to deploy, some for many household names. So we're really excited about this work. These are private, public Casper blockchains. We have a few private Hyperledger blockchains that are also interested in a hybrid deployment with Casper. So we're super excited about that as well.
So there's lots of work ahead.
Yeah, tons of work ahead. More than it's pretty daunting, but it's very, very exciting.
John, you raised your hand.
Yes, thank you. So thanks again for doing the presentation. One of the things that brought me to Hyperledger was really the cost control of having the blockchain history, but still keeping it private. And I'm very interested in the hybrid model, but I'm curious with Casper tokens, what's the risk of it? So we do very, very small transaction sizes, and it's prohibitive to do, Ethereum gas fees, for instance, are just prohibitive. Right. So what's the cost model / what's the risk of having a public token in the change of costs for an enterprise?
Yep. So we recognize that enterprise infrastructure needs to be budgeted for, and Casper has, we have a unique model. So presently in mainnet, right now, the way Casper mainnet functions, it functions very similar to Ethereum. There is gas fees. Of course, the Casper chain isn't nearly as busy as Ethereum, so presently it's not as expensive. But we want to be future-proof, and we're always looking towards the future. So with Casper 2.0, we have a revolutionary model that we have actually already completed the research for this. We know what the implementation is, but it will completely stabilize gas fees. And it will stabilize them in a manner to where enterprises will be able to treat the gas fees, the utilization of a public network, much more as a CapEx versus an OpEx. You'll be able to hold the asset on the books, and it will be something that you will essentially just recycle and reuse. Without going into too much details about the implementation yet, as it's not live, but I can tell you that in 2023, we will be introducing a revolutionary new way to stabilize gas fees for the enterprise. It's been a promise that we've wanted to deliver on from the day we've, scoped out the blockchain. That's to stabilize gas fees are absolutely essential for the enterprise. And we think we found a really great solution for that.
Agreed. Fantastic. Thank you. I'll leave with one note. I assume when we're finished, you guys will leave some sort of who we can follow up with to get more information, knowing that we've liked what we've heard.
Thank you.
Juan, you had a question. Do you want to come off mute?
Yeah, hopefully you guys hear me. I'm in a hotel with the Wi-Fi and not sure where the speaker's at on this laptop. But yeah, I know, Medha, that you're really big on security and that you guys were researching quantum proofs with the University of Kent. Can you speak on any progress or how that's going and how you guys plan to basically remain future-proof?
Yeah, so quantum is a big area of interest in the public blockchain space, and everybody's people are really concerned around what we can do when quantum computing becomes a real risk to particularly asymmetric key cryptography, right? There's a lot of other things to consider around quantum, right? So absolutely, we're doing research on the quantum side. I don't have a current status update on how that research is going, but we are keenly interested in quantum research, also ZK proof research. We're kicking off an initiative at the association around ZK snarks and the value that they bring for privacy and being able to conduct private transactions even on a public blockchain, because we see privacy is a really, really big important use case requirement for enterprises. But on quantum, I can comment in this way. The Casper protocol is one of the few protocols that supports multiple encryption schemes for public keys. So you're not going to find any other blockchain protocol that supports multiple key types. We support ED25519 and we support SecP256K1. And the reason we chose to do this is because we wanted to provide a seamless user experience for anybody that's transacting with Bitcoin or Ethereum. So you can use the same private key infrastructure, right, from a user experience perspective, to transact across both blockchains. And so we're, again, ready for hybrid, technology. And right from the very, very beginning, like this was designed 3 years ago, right, when we initially built the blockchain. And the reason we built that architecture is I want to be able to drop in a new key type at any point in time with absolutely no changes to global state, right? And no changes to the blockchain, very minimal changes. So we can introduce quantum key support with virtually no changes to the blockchain. It would be a very nominal wallet change where you would then associate a quantum key with your account, revoke the main key that's associated with your account, and now your account is quantum ready. That's literally all that needs to be done on Casper, because Casper does support multiple key types. So for us to add quantum keys to Casper is very, very straightforward, and that's because of the underlying architecture. The Casper blockchain does not store public keys in the global state. It stores an account hash, and it doesn't really care what kind of encryption scheme you use for signing transactions, right, on the state. So it's not like you would have to go through this massive migration of all the existing accounts. All the other blockchains use public keys, right, as the accounts on the blockchain. Casper is one of the only ones that doesn't, if not the only one. And so from a quantum readiness perspective, we're ready for what comes in the future.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, this basically the Casper's modular architecture makes it easy for this plug and play key for you to drop in the future versus other layer ones.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep. You can basically drop in a brand new encryption scheme, and then it's very simple, user transaction to basically migrate, and you don't have to create new accounts, right? You can just add a quantum key to your account, and now your account is quantum resistant, right? You add one key, revoke the other, and you're done. That's right.
That's awesome. Thank you, Medha. This is the way.
Another question here on YouTube is, do we have a date or a month for Casper 2.0?
We do not have a date or month for Casper 2.0. Well, I would say it's probably going to be Q3. The reason being is we're going to be bringing NFTs host side. So whenever you bring, again, one of the value propositions with Casper is we can make changes to the virtual machine to meet the needs of enterprise. And what we're learning from enterprise is they're not just interested in collections of NFTs that are 150 NFTs. They want collections of NFTs that are 300,000, 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, right? This is what enterprise grade scale is really about. And so our recent changes to our NFT contract will now allow you to create collections as big as 300,000 NFTs with stable gas fees, right, for minting these NFTs. And this is something that's really unique on Casper, and we can bring it to the host. We can actually modify the blockchain, bring NFTs onto the host, and we know that the community will be hugely in favor of this, because then we can actually say that an NFT mint costs 1 CSPR or half a CSPR, and we can do 100 times more NFTs in every block than we can today, just like we do that with CSPR transactions. And this is something we're going to add to Casper 2.0 because of the overwhelming adoption of NFTs and everything we're hearing from enterprises. So we're going to increase the scope of Casper 2.0, but and that will push out the date a little bit, but we believe this is a massively valuable feature that enterprises and our community is going to be really excited about.
That's exciting. Is there anything else that's part of Casper 2.0 besides the NFT features?
Yeah, so one of there's several things. So I hinted about the gas stabilization feature. The other feature we're going to have is contracts will be able to pay for themselves. So when I call a contract, it'll be able to pay for the execution on its own. So if you look at other layer 1 blockchains, if I'm going to perform what I call a self-sovereign transaction. So what's a self-sovereign transaction? It's you want to have guarantees that I signed the transaction with my key, right? A lot of systems, what they do today with Web3 is I pay a subscription fee and then I transact using the interface. But in order for me to sign the transaction, the subscription provider needs to fund my account because there's no way for me to sign otherwise, or they transact on my behalf. And really the benefit of blockchain is that you want guarantees that I actually signed something, like I did it, right? Well, the only way to do that is if I hold the native token to sign that transaction. So what CasperLabs is building for the Casper protocol is we're going to unify the notion of accounts and contracts. And so what that means now is accounts can sign transactions, but contracts can pay for the transaction. And so what that means is I signed the transaction, but the contract pays for it. And this will represent a dramatic streamlining of the user experience overall for Web3, because now I no longer need to hold token, right, in order to sign a transaction. And the provider can now get guarantees that, wait, Meta, you signed this transaction. I didn't sign it on your behalf. I don't have to look at some Web2 database to know that I did a transaction. I can actually see on the blockchain that this private key, this public key, signed this transaction. And that's like the most important part of blockchain, right? And so when you have to short circuit that, because it's simply too hard and too complicated to get the token in order to transact, that becomes a real problem. So with 2.0, we're going to unify this notion of accounts and contracts. Contracts will be able to pay for transactions directly, even though a user signs it. This is a really, really important value feature, right? And you can also have multi-signature associated with contract upgrades, right? There becomes a lot, like the entire notion of Casper is everything is a contract, right? Even an account is a contract. And it simplifies and streamlines a lot of things. There's a new consensus protocol. We're going to be one of the only blockchains in the space that will upgrade their consensus protocol within 2 years of launch, right? And the reason we can do that is we have a very modular architecture. So we have a version of Casper in test right now that runs both protocols. It goes back and forth. It'll run the production protocol and then it'll run the new protocol. It'll run the production protocol and it switches every 2 eras. And this is massively important from a testing perspective to understand, even from a deployment perspective, if we want to run it in testnet in this hybrid model where we go back and forth between 2 consensus protocols, we can actually do that. and super exciting work. I'm really excited. So those are like the big features, and then of course NFTs on the host.
That's awesome, Medha. And sorry, you said Q2? Q3. Okay, so we can we'll wait until summer for all of that exciting stuff that you're all working on. Let me see. Any other questions from those of us on the webinar or on YouTube? I'll give you a minute to jump in. And if not, we will wrap it up. And did you have a way for people to reach out to you, Medha, if you wanted to share that?
Oh, yes, you can absolutely email me at medha@casperlabs.io if you want to reach me directly. I'm very transparent about my email address. Feel free to reach out. And you can also contact us at hello@casperlabs.io if you're looking for more information about us and our offering. Happy to help out.
Great. Well, I don't see any other questions, so I'm just going to pull up. If you could stop sharing your slides, Medha. And I will just share my screen real quick and wrap this up. Thank you, everybody, for all the engagement and questions. This is exactly what we love to see on these webinars, is you getting your questions answered about how you can leverage Hyperledger technologies and the things that our members are building on top of it and with it. Another way to stay engaged is also to join our Hyperledger Discord. This is where our community it meets to just get questions answered in real time. Each of our projects has a channel, as do our different special interest groups as well. So please get on there and join the conversation there as well. And then I did see one last question here, actually. Let me just address it. Is it possible to buy Casper and stake on Casper in the US?
You can purchase Casper and stake it using Uphold in the United States.
There we go. Thank you for that last question. So yeah, come join us on Discord and you can engage in our community there. We do these member webinars regularly. We have one more before the end of the year. We'll have that on our events page on hyperledger.org pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that, or when we post it on our Twitter or LinkedIn. This one just came in, so we don't have the sign up ready yet, but this will be with IDS. They've built this blockchain network in India. It's one of the largest academic consortia networks. A really exciting use case to cover as well, and that'll be on December 14th. We also have a very vibrant meetup community all over the world. So if you just Google Hyperledger meetups, you can find probably a meetup in where you're located. We do also tend to stream these live as well. So here's an upcoming meetup that I thought might be relevant for the audience here to attend. It's going to be on December 8th, and it's going to be about some challenges in consortia blockchain using Hyperledger Fabric. Thank you, everybody, again for your engagement. Thank you for all the questions. Feel free to reach out to Medha with the information she shared, or us here at Hyperledger Foundation. We're always happy to help you get engaged, involved, and contribute. And we look forward to seeing you on a future webinar, a future event, whether it be virtual or in person. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.